Okay, so today is March 13th, Sunday. We're in Port Aransas, Texas, talking with my mom and her sisters. And let's kind of start by just introducing yourself. Mom.
All right, I'm Ruth Ann.
I'm Ding, and I got that nickname from my sister Ruth Ann. When she couldn't say my name, I'm really Kathryn.
I'm the baby of the family, Barbara.
Okay.
And okay, go ahead.
Well, I was going to just say, Mom, tell me about your earliest memories of your sisters growing up on the farm.
Well, I do not remember Kathryn being born. I was about 2 years and 3 months when she was born. But I do remember when Mother brought Barbara home from the hospital. This little tiny baby with red hair. And I hate to say it, but I was kind of hoping it would be a boy because I already had a sister and I knew about sisters. But we were 3 girls.
And for context, give me your dates of birth.
1940.
1942.
43.
Okay.
We're 15 months apart, Kathryn and I.
And you lived on a farm where?
3 miles west of Evansville, the Maple Herefords. Our dad and his brother raised Hereford cattle. They had Southdown sheep at one point. We lived in a small house next to my grandparents who lived in who had the big house. I can remember playing with my sisters in the living room. I can remember that room playing. We lived out in the country, so we did spend a lot of time together.
And Ding, what are some of your early memories of the life on the farm?
I don't remember about Barb so much, except just playing together. But I remember when Ruth Ann had scarlet fever. She was 6. It was in May, and we couldn't go upstairs to her room. And we could be downstairs. I was out on the lawn, and I could holler up to Ruth Ann, and she would. We knew what.
I looked out from the window.
Right.
And
I can remember when she had scarlet fever.
well, tell me what your early memories are of life on the farm, Barb.
Well, to be honest, I don't remember much about the really early days. And Ruth Ann was enough older than I was that I don't really remember playing with Ruth Ann.
Okay. What were Grandma and Grandpa like when you all were kids?
Well, I never knew my grandfathers. They died in 1946. No recollection at all. I remember my mother's mother because she didn't die until after Leanne was born. But I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house. A lot of time, and she told me about the old days and coming from Ohio and carrying lunch in the little basket.
And that was the big house next door?
That was the big house next door. I spent a lot of time over there.
And so when I said Grandma and Grandpa, I was thinking my Grandma and Grandpa, but tell me about I want to hear from each of you about what your mom and dad were like when you were kids and what you remember about
Rusty and Mary Jane.
Rusty and Mary Jane. But what it was like with them as parents and what was life like on the farm?
Well, Mother was the strict one. I think she
was the enforcer?
I think she was the enforcer.
She had her hands full.
With 3 little
Well,
girls.
we were close of an age. They were good parents, and we would have dinner, and we would be excused from the table, and they would sit there for a long time, and they would visit. I never heard any gossip from them.
So they would just chat after dinner?
After we had been dismissed.
Right. But Mother never gossiped or talked about people.
Well, Father didn't either.
No.
If they knew stuff, they never told us.
No. And they were always interested in the world around. And read Time magazine and always read the newspaper and had, I think, really interesting conversations about life oh, go ahead.
And we got 2 newspapers, and I didn't think we had a pot to pee on. But, we got the State Journal, and Grandma and Uncle Phil got the Gazette, and then we'd switch at night or in the morning, they'd switch, because Uncle Phil, Grandma was too, but Uncle Phil was a great reader.
He was
Was-
well read,
Was he around the farm when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah.
And did he work on the farm?
yes.
And did you all have chores on the farm, or?
We worked outside. Kathryn was probably the most with the cattle. I mean, I drove the hay baler. Ruth Ann always drove on what we called the fork, and so did Kathryn.
So were there tractors and things back then?
Well, I can remember, and I was the oldest. I may have, although I can remember you driving, but I was driving a tractor, no, it was the Jeep. It was always the Jeep, pulling a hay wagon out in the field. And I can remember having loose hay, which is an early memory because it was baled at, probably from 1950. But I can remember my dad and Uncle Phil being on the ground and throwing the hay up on the wagon after it had been raked. And I was driving that Jeep. I think I was 8.
Really?
I could barely reach the pedals. But I guess I had a lot of confidence because at the time it never bothered me, but it probably should have. But
Kathryn was driving the Jeep at an early age.
Oh, yeah.
and the fork was when you first had loose hay but then bales, the wagons would be pulled up next to the barn, and then there was this 4-sided fork that would come down. They'd put it in the bales, fork the bales in, 8 bales
or
at a
the
time.
loose hay.
Or the
I
loose
remember
hay.
loose hay.
And then there was a pulley system, and you would drive forward in the Jeep while it pulled it up to the top. And you had to be careful because it would catch at the top
At
of
the
the
track.
pulley. Then